So what's up with Bikini? I thought you guys were Americans. Well, we are Americans.
So Bikini is an atoll in the Marshall Islands, and that's where we registered our boat. Now, why, you might be asking? That is a very good question, and the answer might surprise you because it definitely did us.
Got it. Every boat has to have a home port, a flag, aka registration. And that information is then entered into a global registry. It's sort of like a car. You know, if I was to register my car in California, I'd have to pay their fees, and then my car would have to meet their minimum requirements for inspections and emissions, and a boat is sort of the same.
So our last boat was registered with the United States Coast Guard. And we did that because, well, it was already a USA imported vessel, meaning the previous owner had already paid those taxes. We could have registered it in our home state of Texas, but then we would have had to have paid state taxes. And we had no intentions of taking the boat to Texas. We were going to be sailing around the world. So we chose the Coast Guard because it is federally designated to register the boat, meaning we don't have to pay any individual state taxes, and it's much better for a world cruiser. It was a super straightforward process. All we needed was a documentation agent, and that was it. But with the new boat, it's never been registered or imported anywhere. That's completely up to us.
We had two major things on our minds when choosing a flag for this boat. One is our cruising grounds, and two is insurance. And we had no intentions to sail to the US within the first couple years because we picked up our boat in Asia and we plan on cruising around here for at least a couple years. And as far as insurance goes, well, that's been the bane of our sailing existence from the beginning. We got the email that our insurance company is dropping us because they're dropping all US flagged vessels in the South Pacific. We've kind of gotten used to that yearly email because the US is notoriously litigious, which makes it difficult to get insurance. And on our last boat, the further away we sailed from the USA, the more challenging that process became. So before we decided on a flag for this boat, we called on our insurance agent for a little advice.
So here's what Bill has to say. A flag has no impact on premiums, but determines whether an insurer is prepared to offer terms or insurance. Carefully select your registry. Long-established open registries, meaning you don't need to be a local citizen, provide the most insurance options. Currently popular are Cook Islands, Marshall Islands, and a few others. But remember, traditionally one role of a flag state is to come to your assistance if your vessel is detained by a foreign power or state. In other words, we really want to choose a reputable flag. And now this was the most insightful to me of all. A word of caution for US flag. We are aware of only 2 reputable insurers that offer blue water insurance to US flagged vessels. So if either shuts their book, I suspect there will be a stampede to re-register. And that right there explains why it was always so hard for us to get insurance. And that is not an experience I am looking to repeat anytime soon.
So at this point, we knew we didn't want to register in the US, but we weren't sure where to register. So we started doing some research, and the more we dug in, the more confused we became. But yet we'd go to a marina or an anchorage and we'd see hundreds of boats with foreign flags. And even some of our friends had registered in the Caymans or the BVIs, but we weren't sure why they chose those flags or how they went about the process. So we started asking around, and the answers for why were unanimous. Their boats were built in South Africa or France or Vietnam, and if they imported them into the US, they'd have to pay unnecessary taxes, import fees, or tariffs. And the reason those fees are unnecessary is because they had no intentions of sailing around the US. And we're in that same boat. And the answers for how, well, that's unanimous too. It's so complicated, we hired a lawyer, and we were recommended 2 names over and over. There's a guy in California and a guy in Annapolis. This is Eugene. He's a maritime lawyer based in Annapolis. We asked him to help us explain all this because, well, if we knew what we were talking about, we wouldn't have needed to hire him.
Now, before Eugene goes spilling all the insider knowledge, we need to take a minute to thank today's sponsor, AG1. Because, well, let's face it, good legal help is not cheap. And we also didn't bother to clarify whether or not we were going to get billed for this conversation. And you've heard us talk about AG1 so many times in the past, and it's because we love this stuff, right? As sailors sailing about the world, sometimes we're close to a market where we can get plenty of fresh fruit and veg, and other times we are not, and we are just eating tinned goods or dried goods. And this is just the perfect way to fill in all of our nutritional gaps because it is our pre-buy prebiotics and our probiotics. It's got 75 vitamins, minerals, and whole food source superfoods, and so many other things. So it's our all-in-one go-to. And it is just 8 ounces of water. Pulled this directly out of the fridge because colder is better. And 1 travel pack or 1 scoop. Now this lovely green powder has a tropical flavor that's sort of pineapple meets vanilla. So it tastes good, not like vegetables. Typically, we like to start with this first thing in the morning. That's definitely Jason's go-to because he does his yoga, drinks his greens, then he's good to go for the day. I do it first thing when I wake up and sometimes in the middle of the afternoon when you're just feeling a little low, need that energy boost because it does seem to perk me up. Sort of better than a cup of coffee for you at this time of day. And right now, if you scan the QR code somewhere here on the screen or click the link down in the description box below, then AG1 will give you 5 travel packs plus a year's supply of vitamin D3 plus K2 for free with your first purchase. So thank you very much, AG1. Now, back to the lawyer talk.
And let's just dive right into the big questions. Who should consider registering with a foreign flag?
Basically, anybody who is facing an importation problem. The rule of thumb is if you're a registration over 5 years, it is cheaper to go with a foreign flag than you would go with Marshalls, BVI, Cayman, anything like that. However, if over 5 years it's cheaper to go with the U.S. flag, then you go with the U.S. flag. Just a little technical, I know you don't want to get into it, but the word vessel tax encompasses sales tax, excise tax, use tax, water tax, and any other word tax that the government can attach to a boat. As they say, the king always wants his share, so they have multiple ways of doing it.
You pay now!
I can give you half.
You pay now!
What are the 3 most popular foreign flags for people like us, just world cruisers?
The 3 big ones that come to mind are the Cayman Islands, which is the top of the top. The Rolls Royce or the New York Yankees are registering a vessel.
So what you're saying is you're not a Mets fan.
I'm an Orioles fan. Then you have BVI and Marshall Islands. Those are generally the 3.
Makes sense because at the marinas we would see so many red ensign flags and we thought, why are all these boats registered in Caymans? And they were all probably higher end boats, very expensive yachts.
Right, when you go over 24 meters, Cayman is usually the registry you want to go to. It's a registry designed for the commercial aspects. They want the super yachts. In terms of ease, it's Marshall Islands, BVI, Cayman.
Okay, well, I think you pretty much answered my next question. Why RMI for us?
1, it is the cheapest of the 3 that I just named. The second reason is it's a safe flag. A couple of years ago, they were the number 3 on the Paris list, and the Paris list is the ranking for insurance companies of how safe the registry is. The reason being is they don't allow certain vessels in. Vessels are scrutinized, but not as much as they are for BVI or Caymans, which all require some form of a survey to get in. The other thing I love about the Marshall Islands is they have a Geneva team and they have a team in the United States. And the registration office is actually in Fort Lauderdale. With a lot of boats coming in from the Caribbean, usually stopping over in Fort Lauderdale, if there's ever a problem, we can quickly fix it because you can just say, hey, drive up, pick up your papers, come back down here or something like that. And the other thing is they have gone digital. Yes, you do get a folder, and I actually have your folder right here for you guys. But for a country like BVI or the Caymans, your registration comes in a book, and you have to have that book. With the Marshall Islands, it comes in an email, and all you have to do is have a printer.
That really worked well for us because after acceptance of our vessel, we only had like 72 hours or whatever to leave, and you were able to get the documentation to us. We were able to send it to our insurance agent, and then I was able to land in the Philippines 6 days later and give them a printed out document because it was digital. So that really worked out really, really well for us.
Marshall Islands is very good for that regard.
What happens if we sail into the USA, which you touched on saying they had an office in Florida? So tell me a little bit more about that process.
Sailing into the U.S. as a foreign vessel, you will be getting what's called a cruising permit. When you entered the Philippines, you had to get a cruising permit. You made a whole story about it. I watched you go offline, get the ship stamp and all that. But it's the same principle. You would arrive in the United States and receive a cruising permit, which is good for a year. So for a whole year, you can travel inside the United States without having to worry about those taxes or import duty or things like that, because you are a piece of the Marshall Islands inside the United States. And to reset it, all you have to do is leave the United States for 7 days, hit a foreign port, come back, renew your purpose, which works great for cruisers because most people spend time in the Caribbean. In the summertime during hurricane season, they come up north That's where they need a cruising permit. And then come fall, winter time, they're back down in the Caribbean, which is a perfect time to reset your cruising permit.
Cool. So just like anywhere in the world, you get a permit, you fill out a little bit of paperwork, you pay a small fee, and then you just have to make sure you get out of there before your cruising permit expires.
Correct.
Why an attorney over a documentation agent? I battled with this question myself. After contacting you, I contacted my documentation agent, had a call with her, and then I called you back and ended up hiring you for your services.
Documentation agents they do exactly what I do, but they can't do certain things that I can do. For starters, I have a 3 letters behind my name, which carries a lot of weight when it comes to international problems. If there is an issue, lawyers are a little bit better equipped to handle it. Also, the other small aspect is when it comes to corporate side, the documentation agent cannot advise you on how to structure your LLC, how to do your operating agreement. And this is very important for people who are going boat as a business. There's a lot of nuance that the doc agent may not be able to answer you. And your accountant, they may answer you, but they can't put it on paper because that's where my field comes in.
Yeah, and that was our exact scenario. I called the documentation agent. She told us because it's a business and all of this, there's just little nuances that I can't help you with. She's like, I can file the paperwork, but I can't help you with everything. And then my CPA was the same. He's like, I can help advise you on tax preparation and tax planning, but I can't tell you whether or not, flagging in the Caymans or flagging in Marshall Islands or flagging with the U.S. Coast Guard could save you at all.
As I said, doc agents are very good. They're very good at what they do if you have a simple registration.
Cool. Well, let's do a quick rapid fire, and I won't box you in completely because I know certain things legally might need a little bit more of explanation, but we'll try to do it as quick as possible. So the first one is, can the flag that you choose help you with financing options?
Yes. Well, it not help you, but picking some of those cheaper flags could eliminate financing options.
Can the flag that we choose impact the emergency rescue, for example, if we set off an EPIRB while we're out to sea?
That's a complicated answer because under maritime Mayday rules, any vessel, regardless of flag, nationality, or status, must respond to a Mayday. So the Navy of a country will respond to its flag. So a U.S. vessel in distress can call the U.S. Navy. A British flagged vessel can call the British Navy. Interestingly enough, the Marshall Islands can call the U.S. Navy to come and assist. They have a treaty that requires them to come and get them.
Could it impact the availability of getting insurance for the vessel?
If you're getting insurance and you want the lower rates, you have to stay in what's called the reputable flags. Your Caymans, BVI, Marshall, you will not have a problem with insurance. Going to some of those secondary markets, yes, you could have a problem.
Can the flag that we choose impact the checking in process or the cruising permit process of foreign countries?
It's not like you would get into trouble. You might get into extra scrutiny.
Definitely. And that was one of the reasons we wanted to hire a maritime lawyer, was the fact that it's our business, it's our biggest investment, it's our life, it's everything for us, and the last thing we want to do is get in trouble and or lose our vessel.
I will warn you about one thing. There's this thing going around that foreigners can flag U.S. by using a Delaware registration. That will get you in a lot of trouble. There's no such thing as a Delaware flag unless you plan to stay within, the 3 nautical miles of the United States territorial waters. But then you're going to have problems with customs or the Coast Guard anyway. That one could get your vessel detained. And one of these days, when you come to Annapolis, or I may meet you guys somewhere where it's nice and sunny, maybe in Bali, then I can give you that whole story.
The last question I have is, can it affect resale value of our vessel?
No, it shouldn't. If you've ever gone into Yacht World, you've probably seen a lot of boats that say not for sale to U.S. owners. All those boats go to Americans. Hire a maritime attorney. I will explain to you how it gets done. Because that would actually be legal advice, and that requires an attorney-client relationship.
Thank you so much for all your help. It really was a challenging decision for us, just based on financials, but we feel like, on the other side of it, it's been worth it. You really helped us a lot, and we really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure as always.
Thanks, Eugene.
Say bye to Nikki for me as well.
Bye, Nikki.
Bye, Jane. Thank you.
Woo, and that was just the condensed, edited version of our conversation. But hopefully that kind of explains why we chose the Marshall Islands and why it says Bikini on the back of our boat.
So now that we've got registration all sorted, let's circle back to that whole insurance thing. Because of our Marshall Islands flag that we now have, this has been the easiest approval and getting of insurance experience that we have ever had. And our rate was even slightly better than our previous boat, which surprised even Bill, because he said you got You got a respectable 1.1% for your high-tech yacht in a region that doesn't appeal to marine insurers. And interestingly, your last premium was rated at 1.2% for a conventional cat in a benign location. So yeah, clearly we made the right call.
And the beautiful part is we're not married to the Marshall Islands forever. We can change our registration at any point if we want. If we sail up to Japan and decide like, oh, we fell in love with it, we're gonna cruise here forever, then we can register there.
Forever is a very long time. Oh my goodness. If you have made it this far in the video, it means that we either did an exceptional job of making this entertaining, or you were in the process of buying a boat and you've got a lot of questions. And speaking of questions, the rapid fire questions that we gave to Eugene, those came from our patrons. So thank you very much for your help and support.
So now you know more about registration. If you want some tips on insurance and how to make it less sucky, then you can watch this video right here.
Is it there or is it this side?
I don't know.
It doesn't matter. All right, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.